In this video, I'm going to show a simple way to take a drawing without panels and turn it into a video using Motion Artist. Now when you open up and do Motion Artist and do File, New Empty Document, it will create a document that has a panel in it by default. And so since we're not using panels, we're just going to click on that and press Delete. Now what we want to do is load up the resources that we want. We will do that through File, Import, and then go to the directory that has the resources that you want and select Open, and it will load them up. Now in this case, I have loaded up an image and a number of voice tracks. And so all we're going to do is we're going to pan the camera for each of the voice tracks. So now the first thing that you might want to know is that this red box represents what the camera sees. I'm not going to talk about all the different controls here, but one that you'll want to be looking at is the camera. We'll click on the camera here in the middle, and we're looking at director's view. You can look at the camera view, which looks like you're looking through the camera, but I'm going to use director view in this tutorial. Now the next thing you might want to know is how to zoom out of the timeline. If you'll look here, we're only showing 5 seconds. So what I want to do is go to View and zoom out on the timeline. So we've got 10 seconds, and do that a couple of times so that we have some area to work with. So the next thing that I want to do is I want to separate out my voice tracks, my audio tracks, into the linear sequence that I expect them to be. And you can use the Shift click or the Control click to select them and then rearrange them. So you just drag them in the way that you want. So I'm going to go ahead and do that now. Now that I've got all my audio tracks separated, what I'm going to do is go to the 0 frame, and the easy way to do that is click on this rewind. It takes us all the way back to the 0 frame, and now I'm going to set the camera to point where I want it to start. If you look at this blue box, I can drag the box, and that's what the camera will see, and I can resize, and if I want, I can rotate. In my particular case, I don't want to rotate, and of course if you press Shift, it will, as you do rotate, it will click to angles such as 45, 90, that kind of thing. Now the most important thing that I want to show in this video is how to start a camera movement and stop a camera movement at the times that we want. Now in a program like Anime Studio, you might click at the particular area that you want, but here we don't set keyframes, we use camera stop points. Now what I'm going to do here is I've got 3 seconds that I want to just have it stay on this title frame, because as somebody might be loading this up on YouTube, sometimes it takes a couple of seconds for things to get started. So I'm going to set it there for 3 seconds. And what I want to do is create a camera stop point here. I can't just click and expect the camera stop point to start there. So what I'll have to do is select Arrange, Animation, Add Camera Stop Point. Now that has a Control 9. You can actually set this to something that you want, but I'm just going to go ahead and set that camera stop point there. Let me show you real quickly. Underneath Help, you can select Edit, Keyboard Shortcuts, and underneath there you can set default, or you can set your own set of control points, and that's when you would look through whatever you want to change, and here you would change the Control S is what I use for my stop points. It's mapped to save, but you can set things up however you want. So now what I'm going to do is to show how one way that you could do it is to have the hold duration for an extended period of time. So let's show why we would want to do that. So what I want to do is, as I am ready for the next camera movement, my next camera movement wants to look at this section in the upper right corner here. But the problem is As I scroll through here, let me give a quick aside here. I was noticing that as I scrubbed the timeline, I was getting voice, and so I turned the eyeball off for the audio track, so now we won't get that extra voice as I scrub. But the problem is that I want the camera to hold or pause while I'm over this title area, this audio track right here, but the camera starts to move. What is happening is the camera will move from one stop point to the next stop point. So one way that we can handle that is click on the first stop point, or double click until it turns red, and then go to the hold duration, and I can use my mouse wheel, or I can type in a value or use the mouse wheel to hold that duration for a certain period of time. Now what will happen is the camera will stay in its position until it reaches the end of that hold, and then it will move to the next position indicated by the stop point. Now that works okay, except for it's a lot of work just to keep that camera in position. So what's easier is just to go to the place where you want to stop that hold, or when you want the camera movement to start, and add again another camera stop point. So in this time that camera is held, so I've got a stop point that starts the camera movement and another point that stops it. So here what we have is we have the camera position, it's held, then we move to the next position and we hold it. Okay, so now I'm going to go to the next place where I want the camera to move, and by moving that camera position and changing the angle, now that stop point is made automatically because I actually moved the camera. So what I'll then do is go to the end of that audio track and again arrange animation camera stop point. Again, I can set a shortcut if I want. Again, I want this held until that time. Now I'm going to move to my next location. So all I do is drag the camera and change its size. Again, I want this held, so see there's a transition here. I'm going to keep it held, so I'm going to move to where I want that holding to stop. Arrange, animation, camera stop point. So that's where it's going to now start the next transition, and when that transition ends, so I'm going to move it here and change the size. And again, I could do rotations if I want, but that's where that transition of the camera happens. And again, I want to put how long I hold it. I do that again by arrange, animation, camera stop point. Then I'm again going to do the camera transition. And for this one, I'm not going to ever change it again, so it just stays in that position and I don't have to add another stop point. Now I can scrub through this and you can see what's happening to the camera. And again, what we could do is go through the camera view and just press play, and we can see what happens from the camera's perspective. Here it's scrubbing along, and when it gets to this point it's going to start a camera transition. Okay? So that's the basics of how you could create a video from a single art drawing without using panels.